From the studios of UNO Television, this is Vote 2016, a preview of the Iowa caucuses, presented by the University of Nebraska at Omaha School of Communication.
Welcome to Vote 2016 Iowa Caucus Preview. I'm Aurelie Villard.
And I'm Sam Murphy. In this next half hour, we will explain why the Iowa caucus is integral to the 2016 presidential elections and learn more about the candidates running.
With a presidential election only a year away, candidates are making appearances all across the country in hopes of gaining their party's nomination and eventually becoming President of the United States.
Though every presidential candidate wants as many states to support them as possible, some states matter more than others. Iowa is one of those states because of its caucus. Our own Matthew Barros is in the newsroom and is going to explain what the Iowa caucus is and why it matters so much.
Thank you, Sam. The Iowa caucus gains a lot of attention, but not many know why it does or even how it works.
So tonight we're talking the Iowa caucus and the field of presidential hopefuls that will be a main focus of this year's event. But first, what is a caucus? A caucus is simply a special kind of meeting or gathering. In Iowa, it might be in a church, a school, or even someone's home. A caucus is when a bunch of legislative body members get together to select a candidate. The word caucus actually has a Native American Algonquin origin meaning advisor, which is kind of what the attendees do. They advise. Mills County Auditor Carol Robertson says Iowans often feel like their advisement is heard by the entire nation.
The people are interested in, listening to the different candidates, and I think they come out of there, feeling a little bit better and think that they're maybe actually making a statement to the other states. And even though our vote isn't an actual like a primary or anything, it's still very unique.
And that's pretty accurate because in the caucus's 40-year history, no candidate finishing below third has ever gone on to win the nomination. So how does a state with a population of just over 3 million and known primarily for its corn and soybean output become the national focus of politics every 4 years? Iowa actually has a caucus every other year for congressional cycles, but it's that fourth year when the eyes of the entire nation turn towards the Hawkeye State. Since 1972, Iowa has been the first state that throws its support behind a particular candidate during the primary season. And by default, it also becomes the first real test for each of the candidates. If a candidate receives a considerable amount of support in the Iowa caucus, it stands to reason that they will also have a good chance with the rest of the nation as well. On the other hand, if a particular candidate does not receive a good amount of support, campaign donations might start to dwindle, signaling the end of a campaign. So how does the caucus work? Iowa is divided into 99 counties, and those counties are divided up into precincts. Each precinct has a set number of delegates it must assign, and these delegates will go on to county conventions. And the county conventions then decide on delegates for both Iowa's Congressional District Convention and the state convention. Finally, it is at these conventions where delegates are selected for the presidential nominating conventions.
So to be clear, caucus attendees don't directly choose the candidate. Instead, they choose delegates they feel will best represent their choice. For the two parties, coming to that result is slightly different. First, let's look at the Republican process.
What they will do is talk about, have each candidate's person talk, and then they will take a vote.
The Democrats' process is a little more complicated. First, they might give a few words supporting their candidates. But caucus goers start by getting into small groups based on their candidates, known as preference groups. There might even be a group of undecideds. Each group is then counted and a percentage of support is calculated. Now here's where it gets a little different. Caucus leaders decide which groups are viable. Depending on how many delegates need to be appointed, the viability threshold could be anywhere from 15 to 25% of attendees. Any candidate without enough support is deemed unviable, and those persons must realign to a viable candidate or declare that they are undecided. Then members from each of the viable groups try to persuade the undecideds to join their ranks. Once most of the undecideds have chosen a group and all the preference groups are deemed viable, the caucus is over. And just like the Republicans, Democratic delegates are assigned based on percentage of support. And that's it. The Iowa caucus, a picture of Republican democracy in action.
Now here with me in the newsroom to help further explain the Iowa caucus is University of Nebraska at Omaha's political science professor, Dr. Paul Landau. Dr. Landau, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So just to kind of clear up the air a little bit for some of those that may not understand, what we just watched, we learned that the caucus goers don't exactly directly vote for the candidate themselves, but instead are voting for delegates, which will move on to represent that vote. Is it possible that these delegates might go on and not represent that vote?
Well, first of all, let me say we're used to this kind of system in a representative democracy. We're used to electing a city council member to represent us in the city council, a state senator, a member of Congress. So representative democracy is all about this idea of electing a representative to go take our cause to another place. As far as the Iowa caucus goes, it is possible under some remote circumstances for a delegate not to follow through. But by and large, they do, and they are required to.
Okay. So what are some of the pros and cons of a state selecting the primary purpose over the caucus? So in other words, the Iowa has a caucus, most states have primaries. What are some of the pros and cons with that?
Well, the argument for a caucus is that it allows more people to directly participate. The argument for primary is that the people go to vote like we do under normal circumstances. So I think really it's become just a matter of preference for the individual states. Some feel like they get a little more notoriety out of a caucus system like Iowa, for example. And Iowa's made quite a bit of hay out of the caucus system over the years. It's worked very well for them.
Right. So now, do the results of the caucus, do you think these are going to have more of an impact on the Republican or the Democratic Party in this election cycle?
It's hard to tell. With the Republicans, they've got so many candidates that there's a not as good a chance that the candidate who wins the caucus will go on to get the nomination. Obviously, with the Democrats having only 3 candidates, they've each got a 1/3 chance of getting the nomination. So, but that varies from year to year. It just so happens the Republicans have a large amount of candidates this year.
So it probably depends more or less on the size of the field, having more of a, whether the results are going to have.
That has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. So far in this cycle, we've already seen Mr. Webb leave the race, and as well as Vice President Biden not enter the race. Do you think that we might have any more expect anyone else to maybe drop out or anything like this going forward?
Well, a lot of people are going to be dropping out, and fairly soon. I would say by the range of March of 2016, the field will be close to being firmed up, if not firmed up. The Democrats have to, frankly, just get through the primary system. I don't think there's very many people that would argue that Hillary Clinton is not going to be the Democratic nominee. As far as the Republicans go, they've got to winnow the field over the next couple months. And you'll see people fall off. Walker and the governor from Texas already have. So,
all right. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Sure do appreciate you being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
All right, Sam, back to you.
The United States may see its first female president in 2016. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has established herself as a leading candidate for the Oval Office. But thanks to a recent surge from Bernie Sanders, the only other serious Democratic contender, the Clinton campaign will have to step up its game yet again.
Action. Citizens, you will elect me. I will be your leader.
While the real Hillary Clinton hasn't been that in your face with her campaign propaganda just yet, you can bet the political veteran will have to step up her game soon to accommodate for the rising popularity of her opponent.
Both seem very qualified for the position, and they both have very good ideas to how to rebuild America, how to bring more jobs to America, how to make America more diverse.
Across the river, the battle between Hillary and Bernie continues as the two fight to see who will be on the Democratic ticket for the 2016 election.
Most thought the former Secretary of State would coast to the Democratic nomination. Clinton began the campaign season in May with nearly a 61% approval rating, according to RealClearPolitics.com, 50% higher than Sanders. Now, though, things have changed, the pundits have spoken, and Sanders' popularity continues to rise.
She seems to be rewriting history, and Bernie's always been consistent. And so I think his consistency on the issues is really going to show throughout the caucuses here in Iowa.
Clinton's liberal stance may be, in fact, derailing her campaign, as many would argue that her running policy will do more harm than good if she were to be elected.
My mission as president will be to raise incomes for hardworking middle-class families and to make sure that we get back to the basic bargain I was raised with. If you work hard and you do your part, you should be able to get ahead and stay ahead.
Clinton has regained some momentum lately as the Sanders hype has settled for now. The Democratic frontrunner still holds a comfortable advantage in recent polls with a 49% approval rate dating back to last week.
Though many people have tossed their hat into the presidential race, people have wondered if Vice President Joe Biden would enter the race. On October 21st, Vice President Biden formally announced he would not run for president.
The announcement was said to have helped former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton position herself as a stronger candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination, even with the increased attention towards Democratic Senator Bernie Sanders.
Sanders has been a Democratic frontrunner since announcing his race for the White House. Flip-flopping back and forth for the top spot against Hillary Clinton, they have battled back and forth covering the country's most pressuring points. Jessica Yarkowski has been following the Sanders campaign for his race for the presidency.
I definitely think he has, I guess the best word I can think of is the moxie.
UNO history major Bobby Herbeck sees in Bernie Sanders what most Americans see, his drive. This Brooklyn native is passionate about his country and the people who built it, and that's exactly who he stands for. For years, the middle class has been stepped on by the top 1%, and Sanders is ready to put his foot down.
We're living in a country where 58% of all new income created in this country is going to the top 1%.
Making it clear his policies demand that the 1% pay their fair share of taxes. This country's billionaires won't be paying less taxes than their secretaries. However, one of the biggest things he is being scrutinized for are his ambitious ideas for using money to build the country back up again. Preaching his proposal to invest millions in America's travel infrastructure to help create jobs and wanting to raise the minimum wage has a lot of America asking,
where's the money coming from?
And with Americans split half and half on the issue of gun control, Sanders isn't focusing on one side, but both. He's looking for a middle ground solution so gun enthusiasts can continue their passion, but those hurt by the weapons can still feel safe. And he's proposed sensible ideas.
People who have criminal records, people who are mentally ill, and that means we need a very strong instant background check system.
We know Bernie Sanders stands against income inequality, but he's also working to get free college tuition for millions of Americans, which makes him popular among younger voters. For the Omaha News, I'm Jessica Yarkowski.
Sanders has been making his rounds across the country and was in Des Moines recently for the Jefferson-Jackson dinner. As of right now, it does not look like he will be making another close appearance anytime soon.
This Republican presidential race has been different from other presidential elections, with two men who have no political experience surging in the polls.
Waverly Monroe is in the newsroom to tell us more about one of these men, Dr. Ben Carson.
Thanks, Aurelie. Republicans seem to really like Carson's demeanor when discussing hot topics. Voters realized that they don't want a loose cannon representing them during the race.
It felt pretty awesome. It kind of felt like meeting Obama.
11-year-old Jeremiah Gardner was over the moon to meet and have his picture taken with Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson. Carson first came about when he swooned Republican parties after he spoke at the National Prayer Breakfast in 2013. He addressed some tough issues that ranged from fiscal to dangers of political correctness, sitting just 10 feet from President Barack Obama.
If I wanted to get you or you, I could get you on a tax issue. That doesn't make any sense. What we need to do is come up with something that's simple. And when I pick up my Bible, you know what I see? I see the fairest individual in the universe, God, and he's given us a system.
He said in an interview with Time magazine that God is opening his doors. People like Danita and Jeremiah Gardner, who are fresh to politics, are finding new faiths in Carson.
Just kind of laid back, simple, not pressured, and
everything. So it's really neat just to listen to hear. It's like down to earth, and so really approachable.
Fast forward to 2015, Carson toppled over competitor Donald Trump in the Republican polls. In fact, Ben Carson and Donald Trump are very similar. Both are non-experienced Republicans and still have the highest votes in their party. They both disagree with abortion, women's equalities, same-sex marriage, Obamacare, and to help illegal immigrants become U.S. citizens.
Ben Carson bounced around Iowa all last month and hopes to get on a ground level with the state in hopes to win in the 2016 presidential run.
The difference between the delivery of issues?
I think he's kind of different from Donald Trump, since Donald Trump is all cranky and a little bit mean.
What Carson did in Iowa was schedule book signings where supporters could come and see him. This made Carson look personable and more approachable versus being in the limelight because of the presidential campaign. Sam, back to you.
Donald Trump is known for his millionaire status and blunt nature, not for his politics. Jamie Schmitz explains how this celebrity is transforming into a political figure.
As a celebrity, Donald Trump has been in the spotlight of mockery for quite some time. And then when he made the big announcement,
I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
On June 16th, Donald Trump announced his Republican candidacy for President of the United States of America. This real estate developer, TV personality, business author, and founder of Trump Entertainment Resorts has lived his life in an outspoken manner that has only made him stand out more as a celebrity. Dr. Adam Tima, a professor at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, thinks Trump's knowledge of how to use media to promote can be a disadvantage and an advantage.
He's good at presenting a product that whoever you are, he'll figure out a way to spin it towards your advantage.
Trump is known for his idea to build a wall along the American-Mexican border, and he says that he will make Mexico pay for it. This, along with a few other comments and tweets, has hit a nerve with some Americans and has gotten many others riled up.
He uses his Twitter feed and his Facebook feed to add to that conversation.
No, come on, Melania, that's just not true. I don't say outrageous things just for poll numbers. I speak from my heart.
Really? If elected as president, Trump plans to relieve middle-class Americans of taxes, simplify the tax code, grow the economy, and not add to the already enormous debt and deficit, keep the right to bear arms, and of course, build a wall to keep illegal immigrants out. For the Omaha News, I'm Jamie Schmitz.
Donald Trump announced Saturday that he has a plan for veterans. The initiative is called the Trump Plan, which would allow veterans to get medical care from any doctor or medical facilities that accept Medicare.
Former Governor of Florida Jeb Bush is running for president. With the poll numbers shifting for various reasons, keeping him from the lead, Jeb Bush is still remaining focused on becoming the 45th president of the United States.
So when I wake up each day, I'm thinking, wow, I'm running for president of the United States, the most amazing country in the face of the earth. What an honor, what a privilege.
Jeb Bush, former governor of Florida, is trying to push up his poll numbers.
Here at the Iowa State Historical Building, Jeb Bush touched on points such as retirement, higher education, protecting the homeland, and helping children reach their American dream.
This supporter liked what Bush had to say.
I was very interested in his talk about education, getting kids through high school and then getting maybe at least a 2-year degree to be prepared to be in the workforce.
And a non-supporter showed up just to confirm his disapproval of Bush's plans.
There's plenty of issues that I would not feel good about supporting him unless he gets stronger on some of these issues, especially relevant to the environment and to climate.
Standing on every panel, visiting each state, Jeb Bush works for the same mission. He believes in order to make a change within the United States, the primary change should be first made in Washington, D.C.
We need to reform Washington so that we can get back on track and create high sustained economic growth where more people have a chance at earned success. That should be our mission.
Jeb Bush's presidential layout includes growing the economy at 4% and giving the middle class the greatest break. But with being the brother of former 2001 President George Bush, America is contemplating will Jeb's presidential calendar be similar. With the plan of having peace and stability in the world, Jeb Bush is determined.
Battered by weeks of negative headlines, Republican Jeb Bush will launch a campaign reboot on Monday along with a Jeb Can Fix It tour.
Earlier in the show, we had Dr. Paul Landau answer what the Iowa Caucus is and how it works.
Matt Barrows is in the studio with Potawatomi County Republican Party Committee member David Overholtzer to explain why this caucus matters so much to the Republican presidential candidates.
Thanks, Aurelia. I'm here with David Overholtzer, a Central Committee member of the Potawatomi County Republican Party. He's going to help us better understand what the caucus means to the Republicans. David, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Glad to do it.
Excellent. So, generally speaking, what does the caucus mean to the Republican Party?
Well, I'm going to actually answer that in three different parts. For the local Iowan, we have this opportunity to participate in the process more uniquely and more personably than maybe a lot of other states do. So it helps, Iowans feel like we're participating in the process. So it helps us. From the local party concept and even kind of the state party, we use it as an opportunity to fundraise because candidates will come into town and we have some fundraiser dinners and some things like that, early on so that people can have, so we use it as a way of raising money. And then at a national level, all right, the concept of the Iowa caucus is, a lot of people think, oh, guys, why have them? Because they don't pick a winner very well. We're not very good at picking winners. And that's kind of a misconception. The saying is there's 3 tickets out of Iowa. The idea is that you don't have to finish first, but you got to finish top 3. And so, for the national Republican Party, it serves as kind of a way to winnow out the lessers, because it's easy to come and campaign in Iowa. It's really easy. It's cheap. Rick Santorum won 4 years ago, and he basically did the whole thing in a, traveling in a pickup with his staffer, all right, as opposed to the big bus. So anybody can do it, but the goal is you got to be that top 3 coming out of Iowa.
Right. And now we have a big field, and we'll get to that in just a second. But how are the candidates that are running this year, this 2016 race? How are they different from those that ran in the 2012 race?
Well, the 2012 race I like better a comparison for the 2008 race, because coming in the 2008 race, there was no clear-cut candidate because it was President Bush was just wrapping things up, so it was kind of a wide open field. And I went and looked up just to make sure, and on our ballot we had 7 candidates back then, and so I think that that's a better comparison. Now, yes, with 14 candidates we have a lot, and there's some unique new candidates that have kind of entered the mix that traditionally we don't have, and so they're kind of making it a little bit exciting.
Well, we sure do at that. Now, so just today, Ben Carson was actually shown leading in the polls over by quite a considerable margin over Mr. Donald Trump. So how much stock should we put in, these poll numbers, even still being 3 months out from the Iowa caucus?
Again, yes, being 3 months out. I just saw something today on one of the news channels that talked about how at this point in time, again, referencing the 2008 campaign, you know who the leader was in 2008 right now? Rudy Giuliani. You know who was number 2? Fred Thompson, Senator Fred Thompson. Number 3 was Mitt Romney, and number 4 was Huckabee. So obviously, and again, 4 years ago this time, the leader was Michelle Bachmann. She was the one who was the leader in the polls. So this tells you that there's a lot of things that can happen between now and February 1st for us and throughout the springtime.
You mentioned Mr. Giuliani. A lot of media attention so far in this race has been given to the 2 Republican frontrunners now, Donald Trump, Ben Carson. Neither of them have ever held public office. What would you say would account for this kind of surge in?
I absolutely think that there's not disgruntledness, but let's just say that there's definitely members of the Republican Party definitely looking for change, looking for new leadership, new ideas, and in some ways maybe even a little bit of assertiveness and aggressiveness with regard to those values that the Republicans hold. And so you can look at Donald Trump or something like that, and even just that the epitome of an outsider, I think, is Ben Carson. Somebody that has not held public office, that is truly, basically administrator of a hospital prior to this. So I think there's a lot of people truly looking for that outsider. Traditionally an outsider has always been a governor. Governor. I mean, the first outsider that really made an impact in the Iowa caucus was Jimmy Carter, because he was a peanut farmer governor from Georgia. Who the heck knew who Jimmy Carter was?
Well,
right?
and this year a lot of people know who Donald Trump is.
Exactly.
So we'll see how it,
like I
turns
said,
out.
Ben Carson kind of fits that.
Right.
But it's been governor role, before has been the outsider. Now we have a new definition of outsiders.
Yep, we sure do. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Overholster. We really appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
a lot.
You bet.
All right.
Thanks, Matt. Currently third in the polls, Florida Senator Marco Rubio has months left to either gain or lose ground. Rubio's opposition to immigration is unique for his fellow running mates, considering that he is the son of Cuban immigrants. Also, Rubio wants to repeal Common Core and reevaluate America's economic relationship with China. Though Rubio is continuing strong in the campaign, many wonder if his past immigration policies in Florida will come back and haunt him in this campaign. If the latest poll numbers is any indicator, 2016 will be a banner year for the political outsider in the race for the Republican Party nomination. One such contender is Carly Fiorina, who has never served in public office and is the only Republican female candidate running. Michael Hulula tells us more about this candidate.
I'm Carly Fiorina, and I'm running for president. If you're tired of the sound bites, the vitriol...
Campaign promos aside, just who is Carly Fiorina? And what does she stand for? Well, let's start with the woman herself. From 1999 to 2005, Carly Fiorina was chair and chief executive of global information technology company Hewlett-Packard. Fiorina elaborated in her announcement that her business acumen will help reimagine how government operates. UNO's Dr. David Volkman is well aware of the advantages a businesswoman like Carly Fiorina can bring to the table.
The individual knows how to manage a company, manage individuals. They also have a better understanding of what the economy is like.
She believes that limiting the size of government benefits ordinary citizens with more efficient representation. A Fiorina presidency would also spell the end of earmarks and the extension of Bush-era tax cuts. In her view, the Affordable Care Act represents a vast government takeover that is symptomatic of a bloated bureaucracy. She's also indicated an interest in accepting some cuts to Medicare and Social Security for young workers. Fiorina's also had praise for the standards set by No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top. Regarding social issues, Fiorina's firmly pro-life and an avowed advocate for gun rights. Lastly, she endorses statutes giving children of undocumented immigrants pathways to citizenship. Now that you know more about Carly Fiorina, the decision come February may be much simpler to make. For the Omaha News, I'm Michael Hulula.
Fiorina's presidential campaign first garnered widespread media attention when Donald Trump first criticized her tenure at Hewlett-Packard. Fiorina plans to keep gaining attention, but not for what Donald Trump says about her.
Republican candidate Ted Cruz has a lie detector nearby as his political campaign lights up with a game of he said, she said. Ted Cruz is running on truth for his presidential campaign. If his truth campaign wins him the presidency, Cruz wants to pursue more opportunities to produce fossil fuels, repeal Obamacare, present IDs at polls, raise the retirement age, or privatize to reform Social Security and institute a flat income tax for all income brackets. The road to becoming president is long and hard, and the Iowa caucus is one of the first steps along that path.
We hope you have enjoyed this program. Thank you for watching Vote 2016 Iowa Caucus Preview. Don't forget to pay attention on February 1st for the Omaha News live coverage of the Omaha, Iowa Caucus. Good night.